And we are live.
A very good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to all. And welcome to the World Forum for Ethics and Business virtual edition of Changing Paradigms in a Pandemic World: How to Regain Trust, Health, Happiness, and Ethics. I'm Nitika Garg, Director Research at OPPI and host for today's session. The World Forum for Ethics and Business is a public interest foundation registered in Belgium and is focused on pursuing and establishing ethical foundations of business in a globalized world. For 18 years, WFAB has been committed to good governance, and we, the Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers of India, are glad to collaborate with WFAB in the panel discussion titled COVID-19 Vaccination and Beyond. OPPI represents the research-based pharmaceutical companies in India. Our member companies have pioneered the research of COVID-19 vaccines to address the unprecedented challenge. OPPI believes the need for innovation must be balanced with the necessity for more accessible medicines. COVID-19 pandemic has really affected the lives of people in every part of the world, and pharmaceutical industry is working tirelessly to find solutions even as we face the second wave in the pandemic. We have ensured the uninterrupted supply of medicines to the patients even during the lockdown phases and have launched COVID-19 vaccine in record timelines. This is certainly a notable achievement that has helped us to understand the value of innovation in the healthcare sector. This has been achieved by the collaborative efforts of industry, academia, and government partnerships. Trust, ethics, and business integrity are important values for all industries, but for pharma and healthcare, these values are the very basis. This is because we care for lives and our products, services are made to save, cure, and improve quality of patients' life. Based on our theme for the panel today, including to provide a brief overview of what the world has gone through in the last 12 to 15 months, we have created a short video which will set the tone for our today's session. Can we have a video on the screen, please?
Outbreak of a mystery virus in China.
The city has been cut off from the rest of the country.
It's a new type of coronavirus.
The coronavirus was confirmed in a couple of new countries.
Over in India, a patient in the coastal state of Kerala has tested positive for the virus.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
आज रात 12 बजे से संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है.
Worldwide, the outbreak is showing little, if any, signs of slowing. Confirmed cases worldwide, 650,000.
Doctors and nurses around the globe have been working relentlessly to help patients.
We truly did everything we could and continue to do everything that we can.
WHO is proud to be uniting with many partners to launch the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator. This is a landmark collaboration to accelerate the development, production, and equitable distribution of vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics for COVID-19.
I'm confident that the world will build a plan to eliminate COVID-19, saving millions of lives and getting on a path to global recovery.
भारत की वैक्सीन प्रोडक्शन और वैक्सीन डिलीवरी क्षमता पूरी मानवता को इस संकट से बाहर निकालने के लिए काम आएगी.
For more than 3 months, Indian-made COVID-19 vaccines have been delivered to countries around the world.
It's not just Johnson & Johnson and Merck. Pfizer, Moderna also work closely with us to help speed up the delivery of millions more doses.
The vaccines have met strict standards of safety, quality, and effectiveness.
the video depicted, burning topic for today's panel is COVID-19 vaccination and beyond. And we have with us our eminent panelists who are the diverse stakeholders from the healthcare sector. Without much ado, let me introduce you to our moderator, Dr. Anil Kukreja, who is the Vice President, Medical Affairs and Regulatory of AstraZeneca Pharma India Limited. Welcome, Dr. Kukreja. We look forward to an engaging and insightful panel discussion. I would now like to invite our panel members. To begin with, we have with us Dr. Shankar, who is the Director General of Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Mande. It is an honor to have you amongst us.
Thank you.
Our next panel member is Dr. Shashank Joshi, who is a member of the Maharashtra COVID Task Force and consultant endocrinologist at Lilavati Hospital, Mumbai. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Joshi. It's an honor to have you with us. So Dr. Joshi is going to join us very soon. We have with us Mr. Sudarshan Jain, who is the Secretary General of Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Jain. Could you turn the spot? Thank you, Mr. Jain. Moving ahead, we have with us Mr. Rajaram Narayanan, who is the Managing Director of Sanofi India Limited. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Raja. We have with us Mr. Vikrant Shrotriya, who is the Managing Director and Corporate Vice President of Novo Nordisk India Private Limited. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Shrotriya.
Pleasure to be here.
Joining us, we have Mr. Andrew Blassie, who is the Director at Crowell and Moring International and visiting faculty at International Anti-Corruption Academy. A very warm welcome to you, Andrew.
Hi, Nitika. Pleasure to be here.
Likewise. Finally, we have with us the voice of patients, Dr. Ratna Devi, Chair of the Board of Trustees at IPO, founding member, IPAG, CEO, Dakshayani and Amravati Health and Education. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Ratna.
Thank you.
Now I request Dr. Anil to take over and lead us further with the panel discussion. Over to you, Dr. Anil.
Yeah, thank you, Nitika. And I would start by saying that it's a huge opportunity for me, particularly, to not only lead this panel, but also engage all the eminent panelists. And we have who's who of the various stakeholders who have really contributed in this fight against pandemic. Not only they have contributed in the fight against pandemic, but they have led the way and guided all the stakeholders to adapt to the new normal. And more importantly, all the learnings which are there during the pandemic, they are sharing with us to shape the future healthcare ecosystem. I think this diverse panel, which has been put across together by World Forum for Ethics in Business and OPPI together, I think I must thank OPPI and WFEB to come together and actually contribute in this and providing us opportunity. Now, before we actually begin the panel discussion, and there are very interesting and exciting topics for all of us to deliberate upon, I've thought it was important to understand when we are talking about COVID-19 vaccination and beyond, what is COVID-19? And as we saw in the clip, actually in the movie, we discussed that this COVID-19 actually is caused by the new coronavirus. And if you see the global picture today, 131 million confirmed cases as we speak. It was yesterday. So this is the latest figures, 2.8 million deaths. Now, it's an unprecedented, challenging situation for all of us to really look at this picture. And more importantly, because of this picture, also the impact it has on the economy, the impact it has on the social life, impact it has on all the overall healthcare and the burden it causes for the healthcare infrastructure. It's unprecedented. And we have seen, I think each one of us would have seen various pictures, which is very harsh reality. And it's very difficult to see these pictures where you can see the pictures and overburdening infrastructure being stretched to the core. Now, what's the answer to this COVID-19 disease? It's very important for us to have one, the COVID-19 getting eliminated, so effective therapies to take care of the patients who are getting diagnosed. Most important is how do we prevent COVID-19? And I think vaccination is going to play a very important role in prevention of COVID-19 disease. A brief about vaccine development. As we all know, for any medicine, it takes years to go from discovery to the approval. And there is a discovery, preclinical development, various phases of clinical trials. And once it is approved, then there will be a manufacturing scale up, validation, and everything. I think we must appreciate and acknowledge the efforts from all the stakeholders here to see that within almost 100 days after the start of pandemic, we not only studied the genomic sequencing, but also identified what is the actual target against which the vaccine needs to be developed, development of the vaccine, and doing all the preclinical work and taking the vaccine to the human beings in the clinical trial stage. And within a 1 year, which usually takes a couple of years, but within 1 year, you have the vaccine being approved on an emergency use basis. And here I must definitely appreciate all the stakeholders, regulators, the pharma companies. I want to really acknowledge the volunteers who came forward and participated in the clinical trials, the clinical trial investigators, and kudos and applause to everyone who contributed in achieving this vaccine coming in a year's time. A lot of innovation we saw, and there are huge learnings from these innovative steps which are being followed or implemented by various stakeholders. Now, if you look at the endpoints of the various SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, I think the vaccine can prevent the infection, it can prevent the disease, it can prevent the hospital admission, it can prevent the critical nature of the disease, which requires the intensive care unit admission, it can prevent the death, and it can prevent the transmission. And different vaccines, so all the vaccines will be studied on all these parameters, and different vaccines have different data, which is coming from the various clinical trials. Now, only development and production is not enough. We need to have the appropriate COVID vaccination program where the vaccines will be allocated, the deployment of vaccine program needs to be done, and of course, it needs to be affordable and pragmatic for each and every country. We are talking about the entire world, that is 7 billion. Now, coming to what is the vaccination progress so far, and I'm sure we will discuss in the panel as well, but this is a diagrammatic depiction of the people who have received at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. And this shows that across the world, the vaccination program is progressing, and we are surely progressing in different countries. Now, I also saw what is the real world impact of vaccine. And I think we have seen the initial signs, which is very good actually, because in the countries which are slightly ahead in terms of smaller countries, the population has been impacted. We can see that the COVID-19 hospitalization has significantly reduced after the vaccination. Similarly, we see other countries where the risk of hospitalization was reduced by 85 to 94%. Now, let me also speak about our own largest vaccination drive, which will happen in one of the with the kind of population we have. So we will definitely discuss about this in our panel. And I will also request all those who are eligible as per the government guidelines should register and take opportunity to go for the vaccine. So CoWIN is the platform where we need to register. Now, most important is the success of vaccine. We need a global cooperation. And all the entities, the COVAX, the Gavi, CEPI, IFPMA, all the collaborations in the individual countries, including the expert groups, the WHO, they have all come together so that the global cooperation ensures the equitable and fair access to the vaccines. Just before we start the panel discussion, I think it's important that all the vaccines that are approved and being used in the national vaccination plans have demonstrated immunogenicity. They have the positive benefit risk ratio and they are approved by the regulators, and they are effective in reducing the severe COVID-19 disease, hospitalization, and deaths. They have also shown efficacy in reducing the transmission as well. Vaccination has a potential to end this pandemic, and it is good to see the vaccination drive is picking up. And we are seeing, although initially there was a hesitancy, and we will discuss that in the panel, but we are seeing the enthusiasm is catching up and it is leading to crowding of the vaccination centers also. So with this brief introduction of the topic, we are going to discuss in this panel with the help of all the eminent panelists to whom Nitika introduced to all of us. We are going to discuss on various topics and diverse opinion, and I'll request each panelist also to bring the best version of themselves to bring their views on pandemic and its impact, the vaccination programs, what are the learnings we can implement in the future, and how do we together create a patient-centered holistic ecosystem. So with this, maybe I'll start and stop sharing and invite all the panelists so that we are able to interact on various topics. And let me start by first question to Dr. Mande. Dr. Mande, we have seen a lot of government-led initiatives. How do you see these initiatives and innovation playing crucial role in the healthcare, particularly in fighting against this COVID-19 pandemic?
So let me first thank WFEB for having organized such a wonderful program. One of the learnings of the pandemic, right? I mean, there have been so many learnings, but some of the learnings have been just phenomenal. The alarmity with which everyone responded to the pandemic, that includes all the pharmaceutical companies, the society, and the government together, how they've actually, in academia, of course, the way they've actually reacted to this is just phenomenal. From the government perspective, it was necessary to assess what were the weaknesses that needed to be filled in and what were our strengths which we could actually very quickly implement the solutions. Right? I mean, there are two things that we had to actually assess very, very carefully. And the weaknesses, of course, was to scale up the diagnostics very quickly. We knew that RT-PCR is going to be the diagnostics. And at the time that we started our strategy, we had only one or two centers which could really do RT-PCRs effectively. But we had to scale that up very, very quickly. And we see the result today that large number of RT-PCR diagnostic centers have come across the country. The other thing, of course, was to provide, say, I mean, what we call as the low-end fruits, but very, very valuable fruits to the society in terms of PPE, scaling up of swabs, media, and whatnot, everything together. But a third and very deep contribution of the government has also been in promoting the vaccination R&D. You know, I mean, many of the companies actually government supported in conducting clinical trial. And in fact, one of the companies collaborated with ICMR in doing these very large clinical trials. And we see the results of that we are able to get the emergency use approval for this particular vaccine. So in a sense, government has been very acutely aware from the beginning. We detected our first case on 30th January last year, and a holistic plan was created. The lockdown actually helped us in pulling our socks together and getting all the resources what we needed and assessing our strengths and implement that very quickly. So all of it has been absolutely phenomenal till now. What we are looking at is a bad second surge, but we'll come to that later. And that also government actually is thinking very actively at this particular stage. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Mande. I think that's very really nice to see the government efforts and collaboration with the various stakeholders. And as you rightly mentioned, I think some of the top government and research bodies really worked very closely and hand in hand with the biotech industry from the vaccine manufacturers. Sir, just one additional point. How is the vaccination program progressing in the country, and how does it compare with the other countries? Like, any thoughts on that, particularly from your side?
See, our challenge is our population size, which is huge. But nonetheless, the government is progressing at a fantastic pace. On today's date, more than 8 crore, there's about 80 million people have been vaccinated in India, which is by itself quite a good number. But a lot that needs to be done more. And because we knew from beginning that it's going to be challenging, there's clear priorities that were defined. And we are not isolated. Many other countries also had definition of their priorities, whom they are going to do. So we have done exceptionally well in actually finishing our first 2 priorities. That is, healthcare workers and doctors and all, we wanted to get them vaccinated as early as possible. But we also wanted to have people above the age of 60 and those with comorbidities getting vaccinated. So we have done really well on that front. On today's date, of course, people above the age of 45 are being vaccinated. And I'm quite pleased with the way the program has been going on. What we should tell through your program to people is that please go ahead and get yourself vaccinated if you're above the age of 45.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think that helps me to take this question to Professor Shashank Joshi, who has been part of the Maharashtra COVID-19 task force. And I think the task force has played a crucial role in guiding the government as well. So, sir, any thoughts on the task force efforts, and what are you looking forward in terms of vaccination progress? Any expectations from your side? Since Dr. Mande also is here, maybe we can have an interaction between both of you.
No, I think I agree with Dr. Shekhar Mande completely. Government has gone out of its way to make a very a roadmap for vaccination. And the roadmap for vaccination has been threefold. Number one is that they have taken the most eligible and most vulnerable first. So they took care of the healthcare workers as well as the frontline workers. And now we are in the second wave. So as we are in the second wave, we know that if this was not vaccinated now, we would be in trouble. And predominantly across India now in the second wave, we have our healthcare force as well as the frontline work already vaccinated. Next is the most vulnerable group, which are likely to die due to COVID. And that is where vaccination has the largest impact. And that is why, as Dr. Mande said, I would second him completely, that please go ahead if you're eligible and don't have any vaccine hesitancy. Please don't go by social media or a university of WhatsApp or Google or all other platforms and get educated. I think if you're eligible, just go and get vaccinated. We have 2 very good vaccines. Both, I think, are homegrown partly. And we will have another few also, which will come up very fast. We have the ICMR supported, Bharat Biotech vaccine, which is a killed vaccine, which is immunogenic as well as efficient. It might have an impact on the mutant strain. Then we have a variant of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine itself in India from the Serum Institute in collaboration with ASI, which is the Covishield, which a large proportion of the population has taken. So I think both these vaccines, and we'll have another few coming up very fast, including one Zydus COVID, which is a DNA based, which is the Indian equivalent of mRNA. We will have a mRNA vaccine from Pune. We will have a couple of other vaccines like Sputnik coming out with Dr. Reddy's labs. So I think, India is the vaccine pharmacy of the world. We have shown the world in smallpox as well as in polio that we are the leading countries in the world in vaccination programs and execution. Currently also, we are running the largest vaccination program on planet Earth. And we are in the second wave. So in geographies where we have major challenges, the government is trying to support us. For example, the CSIR, ICMR labs are trying to help us with genomic studies now, because we know there could be a genomic variant. They are trying to do some evidence-based work, whether there is any evidence-based to any escape. So also Indian science has arrived. See, maybe 20 years back, Indian science was not there at a world platform. Today, US couldn't do a killed vaccine, but the Indian scientists could make a killed vaccine. So I think it is a very proud moment for Indian scientists that the Indian scientific platforms, both in public sector and private sector space, have arrived. And they are able to be the world's pharmacy and world's technology front. So I think on both the fronts, we should be very proud that we are putting our best foot forward. Our only challenge today in India is behavior. And behavior is because we are argumentative Indians. We look everything with a rebellious tendency. We look with everything with a doubt. So I think it's time that we embrace the vaccines which are available. Don't debate which one I should take. If you are eligible, go ahead with the nearest vaccination center, consult your doctor before taking the vaccine and take the vaccine. It's as simple as that. I see that minute there is somebody eligible for vaccination, they first go and do so much of research on the vaccine that they get a PhD in it. And most of the information they have got is non-peer reviewed, non-evidence-based information. Also remember, today COVID taught us one more thing, that there is a lot of preprint which never gets published. These articles lie on a preprint platform. They really don't make the peer review process. 80% of the preprint articles which have got up on that platform have actually not gone through the peer review to get ultimately published on PubMed or the scientific research basis. So remember that lot of evidence base, even for medical doctors and scientists, they need to take it with a pinch of salt. So I think my simple message is, don't hesitate. If you are in India or any part of the world, if you are eligible, go and take the vaccine, but consult your doctor. If you have a medical condition, if you are on a blood thinner, if you have a comorbidity, if you have cancer, if you have any other disease, consult your local doctor. He will guide you. But if you have anaphylactic shock, if you got angioneuritic edema, it's a contraindication for a vaccine. There, I would not tell you to go and take a vaccine. Otherwise, they'll hear me and they'll say, doctor, you said go and take the vaccine. And then, I had 3 reactions, which were angioneuritic edema. So I'll drop dead. So obviously, the vaccine center won't accept you. Also remember, we have technologically enabled. We are able to track who got vaccinated, when is the second dose due, and you get it on your SMS. I think, the vaccination network in India is very well technologically enabled. Initially, there were glitches. There were a lot of teething curves. It took a little time, but I think it's time for it to take off now. And also, they have been very equitable about it. So that has led to a lot of controversy. We want vaccines to be given by general practitioners, by pediatricians, by local general practitioners. We want vaccinations to be given by corporates, under supervision, of course, and also to be sold in the open market. So that raises the challenge, but government has been very conscientious that they want it equitable, and that's a debatable issue. So that's something which is there. And areas and geographies where there is a high prevalence of a second wave, probably there would be a suggestion to vaccinate the working class earlier and quicker. And I think that may be true for some cases, but I think government will be very clear about its equitability and distribution of it, because it wants to save lives first and save severe infections. Remember, there will be infection after a vaccine, but the severity will be asymptomatic or mild. While if you don't take a vaccine, it could result in death with a normal natural infection or severe disease, which can land up with you with a ventilator or permanent oxygen need. So what vaccine is doing is it is preventing serious infection and preventing death. And there, I think all vaccines are almost at 100%. People are all looking at that efficacy of the vaccine, of a manufacturer A versus manufacturer B. That is for mild or asymptomatic disease. Don't go by that yardstick. Also remember those 95% trials which were done by, say, Pfizer and Moderna. No offense meant to all these pharmaceutical industry which has done some wonderful contribution. They were done when the peak of the pandemic was very low. It was at the nadir of the pandemic. While when Johnson did their trial, they did it at the peak of the pandemic. When we did our trials for Covaxin or Covishield, they were at the peak of the pandemic. So obviously, they may not be at 95%, they will be at 65 or 70% on their efficacy. But as far as saving lives is concerned or severe disease is concerned, they will be definitely effective. There may be science challenges, research challenges, like mutant strains may be there may be immune escape, but leave that to the scientists to decide. But I think, Dr. Anil, I'm grateful to this World Forum of Ethics in Business for allowing us to speak here. My only take-home message to everybody who's listening to us is please do not have vaccine hesitancy. If eligible, contact your nearest healthcare provider, get a green signal from them, and go and get vaccinated. Your doctor is your best evidence-based source, or your healthcare provider is your best evidence-based source to tell you whether you can tick mark if you have a condition. If you not, just walk in, get vaccinated, take your shots on time, and still, despite of that, one more message. Despite of vaccination, you need to mask 2021, 2022. Mask is the strongest vaccine. Whether you like it or not, I think, I know the industry may not like what I'm saying, but masking is still the strongest tool which we have to prevent COVID.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Joshi. I think you really communicated the key messages very well. Thank you for that. I just had one follow-up question to both Professor Joshi and also Dr. Shankar Mande, particularly on this concern about the new mutant viruses. So any thoughts and any initiatives, sir, from the government, particularly to study this mutations, particularly in Indian strains? And any advice from Dr. Joshi that what should we do particularly on that? Dr. Mande?
Okay. So the thing is, what you're talking of Indian strain is probably you're referring to B1617. There's a double mutant. It's E484Q, L452R. That mutant actually is found in about 15 to 20% population, especially in Maharashtra, but also now we have started finding it in other states, this particular mutant. Predominantly in Punjab and all, we are finding B117. There's a UK variant at this stage. Now the concern is that are the vaccines and all are likely to be equally effective on this mutant or not? That's a concern that public has been expressing the opinion. The second concern is whether this is spreading faster. And the third concern is that whether it is more lethal. So let us get actually the third concern out of our head very quickly. There is no evidence that B1617 is any more lethal than the wild type. Right? That's the first number thing. So I don't think there is any scientific evidence even to prove that B117 also is more lethal or not. That's out of our head. In terms of the transmissibility, at least B117, there's the UK variant, that is proven scientifically now that it is more transmissible. Right? I mean, it actually spreads much faster than the wild type or something like that. Now, the question is whether B1617 also is equally transmissible or not. And those questions are being addressed right now. Dr. Joshi also is contributing to that quite significantly. And these questions are being addressed at this moment. So we will reserve our answer on this particular question right now. The third one, whether are these immune escape or not? You know, the first question that we addressed, that are they vaccine immune escape? That question, once again, at this moment is being addressed in multiple laboratories. The kind of assays that we do is that we have taken this particular viral isolate and we incubate that in the cell culture and look at the entry of the virus into the cell and whether that can be blocked by sera of people who have been prior exposed to either the wild type virus or people who have been vaccinated either with Covishield or Covaxin. That's the kind of assay that we do. And only that kind of assay will tell us whether they are either immune escape or they are vaccine escape or not. Now, these assays are on right now. But at this stage, I would like to suggest that most of the scientific community believes that vaccines are effective against all these mutants because the mutations are taking place of one or two, or in the extreme case B117, there are 17 mutations on the spike protein. But the antibody that are generated in the body are against the whole viral particle and the entire viral entirety. So therefore, most of the scientific fraternity would like to believe that vaccines are effective, perhaps not equally against the mutants, maybe slightly weaker, but nonetheless, they're effective against even the mutants. So let us get all the three concerns out of our head for the time being. It's for the scientists to concern about them. I address the scientific questions. It's not for the public to be concerned about them. Public must take vaccination at this particular stage.
Thank you, sir. Very well said. Dr. Joshi, you want to add anything to what Dr. Mande said?
I must thank Dr. Mande because in some of these debates like this, he has gone out of his way to help out states like Kerala and Maharashtra. In Kerala, they have CSIR labs from Delhi, which is led by Dr. Anurag Agarwal, who is supervised by Dr. Mande. They actually were able to map district-wise where is the genomic mutation and guide them, the public health experts, to contain better. Similarly, now in Maharashtra also, this is not public domain knowledge, but they have now, there will be a district-wise genome to public health mapping of these. And they are all laboratories, whether it is NCCS, NIV, whether it's ICMR or CSIR, they are trying to help us out to identify these research questions. But I would again endorse with what Dr. Mande said, that right now there should not be any concern for lay people at large. Currently, both the Indian vaccines are reasonably effective against mutants. They definitely are immunogenic. They definitely will prevent severe disease and deaths and should be taken. The only research question which is being looked at is the current variant which has been observed as a double mutant, whether it is more transmissible or not, is being looked at. But right now, clinically we think it is, but I think we need to prove it by science. And in the era of evidence-based world and a scientific world, we need to wait for the answers for the scientists to answer. Maybe in a month and a half to 2 months time, we will have better data to answer those questions. But that doesn't mean that we should be hesitant to take the vaccines as Dr. Mande has rightfully said, we should go ahead, take the vaccines, get ourselves a immunity which we need, just like what natural exposure does. Because right now we are having a tsunami of the second surge in some geographic spots of India, which is spreading very fast, that's for sure. And that's not because of the strain. As he rightly said, the management of whatever COVID we are seeing now and before is almost same. Its behavioral pattern is also very similar. Maybe the younger population is getting affected more, the pediatric population is getting affected more. We are seeing faster recovery, lower case fatality rate. So we are seeing all these things. But as I said, that right now we need to actually strictly have zero tolerance for people who don't follow COVID appropriate behavior and establishments which don't follow the COVID appropriate protocols. I think those are the need of the hour. I think that is really crucial. And I think if the vaccination arm succeeds, then a large population, once it is vaccinated, at least the case fatality rate will come down. There's good British data to document now that the above 65 deaths in United Kingdom in the second surge were substantially less because they did a large scale vaccination. And that is why Government of India also in their wisdom have decided to vaccinate everybody above 45 because the largest pool of deaths is for people above 50. Almost 80% of the deaths which have occurred in COVID, if you exclude comorbidities, are for people above 50. And probably we'll be able to save all these lives. So our principles are very clear. Save lives, save critical and severe hospitalizations, and then of course treat COVID aggressively. So that is the bottom line. So I would agree with all these three. And the immune escape phenomenon is a research question. Strains are a research question. And I think we have had problems in Brazil, South Africa. We have had problems in UK, United States, California, and even in India. Probably for the last 1 year, consistent research reporting has happened both from ICMR and CSIR labs. And we have some of the best genomic scientists in India. And I'm certain that they will answer those questions in time to come. And please be on the lookout for PubMed articles which they keep publishing in times to come.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Joshi. I think very nicely communicated the key message that those who are eligible, please go ahead and get the vaccine. I think that's the key message which is, I take it from this panel discussion. And more importantly, the research, the capabilities, and all the government and stakeholders, academia are working together to bring the local research questions also. And it was really delighted, and I was very happy to hear that district-wise mutant analysis which is being done. I think that will really pave the way for us to more deep dive in the science also and answer those scientific questions. Now, let me take this to the industry stakeholders, and maybe let me start with Mr. Rajaram, who's country president for Sanofi, and brings a huge experience. Sir, how did industry ensure the continuous supply of medicines to the people during this pandemic, and particularly during the initial phase of the pandemic?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I think it's now quite behind us. It's almost a year now since we've been through that. But I think if there's one thing that everyone realized is in the industry is that at such a crisis time, there were just two things we had to do. One is discover the medicine and then deliver the medicine. Everything else was really not important. And I must say that there was no strategy in the early part of the situation, because it is really the human spirit which came together. Because there was first 3 months, there was considerable amount of chaos, and most of us had to, take two conflicting decisions. Half the organization had to stay at home, and another half of the organization, which was in the factories, had to mandatorily go and work. In a situation where people didn't know much about the disease itself. So I think the way people came together, and this was for me a very, very important demonstration of trust and a recognition of interdependence in the country. I must say that, and Mr. Jain is here, the head of the IPA over here, the amount of support that people got from the government at national level, state level, ports, DCGI, DOP. I have not seen a situation where every day there were at least 3 to 4 calls every day between industry and all the authorities, where the smallest of issues were quickly fixed. And I think if at all there was one thing which came together, we fixed things because people came together. The second, of course, the ecosystem developed very fast, right? Your neighborhood retailer, the e-commerce people stepped in very quickly to sort of help, this piece. So I would say that to a large extent, the first 3 months was about an intense amount of conversation and a commitment that, we are all in this problem together. It wasn't based on any sophisticated, solution beyond just sort of people. Yes, as things moved on, I think people brought in far more insights into how do you ensure, the industry copes up with this. But that's really, I would say, was perhaps the most important and enduring part of, this entire crisis that we all went through.
Yeah, maybe I'll request Mr. Sudarshan Jain and Mr. Vikrant Shrotia if you want to add anything to what Mr. Rajaram said on this question.
So basically, I will build on where Rajaram left, and it is a great example of great collaboration and adapting at every stage. It is always said that adversity brings the true character of a person in the industry. And what this COVID demonstrated to all of us, that Indian industry is very strong, and when government and industry works together, it can make big difference. I'll give you an example. Like say we realized on 26th of March that we are the pharmacy of the world. Every third tablet in US is sold from India. Every fourth tablet in Europe is sold from India. And at that day, we didn't know. And if I look at the production figure in the last week of March, and Dr. Shankar Monday is there, it was only 20%. And there were calls from WHO all around the world. But the government declared our industry as an essential industry. So that was the first starting point. Transportation at that time was not declared essential. And hence, there were a lot of problems. Transport can't go from one place to another. But there was a great collaboration between the government and the industry. Transportation allowed both essential and non-essential to travel. So there was no blockade. Channel members got into the picture. Ancillary industries got into the picture. Airports got into the picture. And I have never seen that kind of collaboration. Rajaram and Vikrant will say that if there's a problem in Baddi, if there's a problem in Daman, the Secretary DOP himself will call up and make sure that the problem is resolved. We have never seen this kind of collaboration. In fact, this is part of the case study which has been developed at IIM Ahmedabad, and it will be written. Lot of learning which is there not only for the Indian industry, but throughout the world, the kind of collaboration which has been there with the government and the industry and all stakeholders. And I'd like to congratulate all of them. And still, we are not over. We are in the second wave. And today itself, right 24/7, 9 o'clock yesterday night, all the industry are trying to find out the solution. How do we make our products available? So we are 24/7 in it. Great example of everyone together. And together, we'll find the answer. Thanks to Dr. Shankar Monday, thanks to Professor Shashank, and many leaders in the government who have made all the difference. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Jain. Vikrant, maybe I'll slightly spin the question. What are the learnings from this new, like this pandemic, and what is called as new normal? And which learnings, as an industry stakeholder, you want to carry it forward?
I think the first learning is the spirit of mankind. And I will echo what Rajaram and Mr. Jain has alluded to. The kind of speed and agility which we have seen in India was phenomenal. It was a state of denial, let me tell you, on 23rd of March, when this declaration of lockdown happened, the country was at a standstill. And we were actually not knowing what to do. And I will echo, there was no strategy because we never imagined that there can be a lockdown in a country of 1.3 billion with 718 districts all around. And the first question which came is that how do we actually deliver the medications? And that part rightly covered, I think so. In the first couple of months, we could able to stand on our feet and could find out the sustainability in terms of the supply, not only in metro, but every nook and corner of the country. But there has been immense learning. Learning in the sense that the biggest learning is the digitalization. It's not that it is something new. It is an ecosystem which has been developing for, you can say, 50 years, right from the microcomputer when it was invented, then the internet came, then you can say the e-commerce started, Facebook, and all these kind of channels started. But it was there in entertainment, it was there in travel, it was there in banking. But in the pharmaceutical and healthcare, I would say that the amount of learning which multiplied during this lockdown period and the post-lockdown period was 10x time. It was something that we saw that on 23rd of March, when the lockdown was announced, it took one day for government to announce something called as a telemedication framework, which was there on the table for 5 years, debate and discussion because of ethical dilemma. But it took one day to come out that telemedicine is on. And you can see the result that any of those telemedicine platform, whether it is from hospital or independent, there has been 2 times multiplication of the consultations which have happened. What has been another immense learning is that there is always an easier way to do the things in terms of digitalization, in terms of connect with the customer, in terms of connect with the patients, and there are much more simpler ways to do the things. The learning is also that the data science, which has been evolving because of COVID, has started coming off an immense use in pharmaceutical industry. You will be surprised that all these NVIDIA or AMD chips, half of these chips are being used actually in the health sciences as of today, rather than in gaming or any other part of the industry. And this data science, which is now being used from research and development to the supply chain at the last mile, I think that is one learning where we have realized that pharma industry can also accelerate much more faster and can use it. I would rather say that today the biggest learning is that is there an easier way, is there a digitalized way to do the things? That's the first question which comes in mind with the COVID which has come.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Vikrant. I think very nicely alluded to. Any aspects Rajaram or Mr. Jain wants to add to what Vikrant said, particularly about new normal?
I would just like to add, it is the entrepreneurship of the Indian people and collaboration. Those are the 2 great things. Like say at the time when COVID-19 lockdown was announced, we didn't have ventilators, we didn't have tests, we didn't have the work on the repurposed drug. But all the Indian people, they were able to get ventilators, tests, and also in terms of pharmaceutical industry, the way we have responded even for vaccination program. So when there is an opportunity, when there is a moment, Indian people can come together and make a difference to the world. That is point number 1. Point number 2 is collaboration is the key. It is a boundaryless word. So even in organization, each department collaborated very well. So like today in a supply chain kind of situation, there is a purge in cases in one particular part of the country. We used to go with procedures that how do we supply it? But in this kind of situation, everyone responds together and make things happen. So collaboration, whether it is internal or whether it is external, was very, very important. And that is important in a world which is volatile. And that is a great learning for all of us. And that will be important going forward. I will stop here.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Jain. Rajaram, I'll extend this question further. There is also a huge amount of collaboration between academia and international organizations. And we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, particularly with the genome sequencing being identified. I'm not sure how many of you have seen the BBC documentary, which is called as Race for Vaccine. The work started actually on the weekend when the genome sequencing was first published. And that actually nicely elaborates the kind of efforts which were done in the academia institute, particularly I'm talking about Oxford, and then the collaboration, of course, with AstraZeneca, and similarly the collaboration of AstraZeneca, Oxford, and Serum Institute of India. So how do you see the role of this kind of an international collaboration also not only between the academia industry, but also between IFPMA, Gavi, and CEPI to make efforts on equitable access of vaccines. So any perspectives from your side, Mr. Rajaram, on that?
I think we've, this last 12 months has probably put a lot of things in perspective, right? I think the first is it was a race against the virus. I think it was not a race against each other. That is one thing which people quickly realized. And I think all the companies, if at all, and the rest of the people came together, it was that we were in this together. We had to bring our best capabilities together. And it was an unprecedented simultaneous effort for vaccine development. I don't think ever we've had, 1,000+ trials going on simultaneously, 100 candidates for vaccines being done, knowing very well that only a few will eventually find commercial opportunity. But everybody came in and started the work. There have been surprises in the middle and failures in the middle, but look at what kind of a situation we have. We have someone who has discovered the vaccine, another company has commercialized it, run out of capacity, and 2 other competitors are actually filling it right now. Yeah, and that is the kind of situation which we have not seen for a long period of time. And I think what people have realized is that this collaboration is going to be extremely important. I think the other big learning over here is that the solutions can come from anywhere. I think the point that does it originate from an industry? Does it originate from a laboratory? Does it originate from a research institute? That's now not very clear. I think all of them have to come together to be able to do this, and I think that's going to be the model, going ahead more and more. Now, in all of this, as we get into the real challenge, which is on how do we go ahead and make sure there is equitable distribution, given that there are global challenges in these kinds of things. The good part of it is that I think the world has intervened and made sure that there are alliances which have been formed. So whether you take COVAX, whether you take Gavi, I think all companies are, and India itself is a great example of, despite having a significant amount of manufacturing within the country, we ourselves have gone and, made vaccines available to several countries almost on an equitable proportion right from the beginning. And that's the way in which it is going to continue. And I think that knowledge and solutions originate anywhere. They belong to the whole world. They don't belong to one place. I think that's really, for us, the big lesson going. And it is part of being ethical and responsible in this industry. We must remember that this industry was, has gone up enormously in terms of trust, reputation, and importance in the last, 1 year in every survey, and of course, even visibly so. And I think people are realizing that there is a value to this, and it will not get diluted so soon, given that the effort which is going on by everybody.
Thanks, Mr. Rajaram. I think let me switch the gears, and there is very respectable and a very important stakeholder in today's panel discussion, which is the voice of citizen and the patient's voice. So maybe I'll invite Dr. Ratna Devi now. What are the challenges which were faced by the patients, and even currently today also, as we see the surge of the pandemic and cases coming in different parts of the country? What are the challenges they are facing, and how we are addressing these challenges during this pandemic? And then maybe I'll come to the vaccine question also, but important is about the challenges for the pandemic and how are these being addressed currently by the patients?
Thank you, Dr. Kukreja. I'm not the only voice. All of us are patients, so all of us in a way represent the patient voice. And I'm so heartened to hear all the positive things that are happening around vaccines and access to medicines, etc. In terms of challenges, when initially, the world was hit by the pandemic, there was total chaos. And we already know because of the misconceptions and the, in the infodemic that was going around, there was so much of fear and panic that, if you enter a hospital, it's in all likelihood, you're not going to exit. Also, the character of the pandemic was such that once the patient enters a COVID hospital, they are cut off from the near and dear ones. Near and dear ones are cut off from the person who is there in the hospitals. So there was a lot of psychological trauma, and there were no institutions or mechanisms built to be able to manage this, because nobody anticipated a pandemic of this size and this magnitude. But along the way, we learned, and as Professor Shashank Joshi as well as Mr. Mande have said, government stepped up. They came forward, they put in the systems and the infrastructure in place, and slowly there was this hope. I would just like to add the word hope to the collaboration word and the digitalization that we've been talking about. There was hope. And people could see that there was a future that they could look forward to. If you see the period between March and June in the context of India, it was as if there's no future, because there was loss of livelihood. People were dying. People who had gone to the hospitals had no money to spend, especially if they were going to a private sector. And it appeared as if there is no hope. But slowly that hope was rebuilt back. Primarily due to the efforts of the government and all the guidelines that came out in terms of, how to manage your testing if you suspect that you have the vaccine, if you have the infection, where to go so there were lists that were publicly available of hospitals that had COVID beds, and this kind of information that was made available by the government has never happened before. And again, there was a handshake, if I can call that, from the government with the civil society, because the government realized that much of the management for loss of livelihoods in terms of provision of, say, food or shelter was being managed by civil society. So there were a series of dialogues that were initiated by the government to try and map who these civil society organizations were and how are they managing this. So in terms of challenges, there was loss of livelihood. There was people had severe shortage of food because of loss of livelihood. So it's not just managing the pandemic and not getting infected and having a mask, but also how do you survive when you don't have food and rations in your house. People were stuck because of travel restrictions, so families were separated, and there was no immediate solution as to when travel would be restarted and how soon the families could be reunited. So that was another big fear that was there in people's mind. Also, what happens if you have a comorbidity like, say, diabetes or cancer? And I think that is where there was the biggest failure, because time-sensitive treatments went completely out of the horizon. So persons with stroke, persons on chemotherapy, persons on dialysis, even though they were not infected, suffered the most. And they still continue to suffer, because many hospitals are not working at full capacity, and telemedicine is not a solution for some of these time-sensitive treatments where patients have to reach hospitals within a limited time, or the golden hours, as they call it. So heart attacks and stroke patients, they really were clueless where they should go, who they should approach, and there was no national helpline or an information system where they could dial in and call and understand how they could manage these kind of emergency situations. And I think that's a big gap that still needs to be filled. However, this has opened up a lot of opportunity. I mean, even though it's a challenge, it has opened up a lot of opportunity. In the same way that the industry came together, the civil society also came together. We forgot which area we are working in, whether it's livelihoods or whether it is women-centered issues or maternal and child health or non-communicable diseases or rare diseases. All the civil society came together and sort of shared the resources that they had. To try and support each other, whether it was getting medicines to people who could not travel or who could not leave their homes, getting doctors, arranging for transport, trying to get referrals across cities, trying to see where beds are available. All this information was very freely shared amongst the civil society organizations and the patient organizations. Now, in terms of future challenges, I think the health system is not prepared for another pandemic. We will somehow maybe overcome the current pandemic because of the availability of vaccine and the better understanding of therapeutics and how to manage people at home and all those things. But if there is a new virus that comes over the horizon where we are still not prepared for treatment, then I think our health system is still just not prepared to manage a pandemic of this magnitude in the future. So if we have another pandemic in 3 or 4 years' time, I'm not sure how we will be able to respond, because the resilience of the people hasn't really been built up to a level where they would be able to manage a challenge once again. So I think that's something that we really need to work on. How do we manage the community resilience? How do we build on community resilience and build community resources so that if something like this happens in the future, then at least the basic healthcare systems, the basic food, basic livelihood, all that is managed, and there is no breaks in their life. Because life is beyond the pandemic and vaccines are a tiny part of a human being, so we have to take care of that aspect as well.
Yeah, so thanks, Dr. Ratnadevi. I think very useful perspectives, and I particularly liked your starting statement that we are all patients and we are all for patients. So I think that's a very nice way of putting it across. I just want to have your thoughts on what are the barriers which people have? Do you think the citizens still have vaccine hesitancy? And how do patient organizations like yours work towards alleviating those any vaccine hesitancy, which Professor Shashank Joshi and even Dr. Shekhar Mande also spoke in the beginning? So how can the patient organization also contribute in enhancing the vaccinations, which is crucial for fight against pandemic? Any thoughts on that, Doctor?
Okay, so there are two extremes. So there is one set of people who are very eager to get the vaccine but don't qualify. And then there is another set of people who qualify but are very hesitant because of myths and misconceptions that are floating around. And I think the behavior change has to be addressed to both these groups, because either way they are messing up with the system. And in spite of the best efforts of the government to deliver the programs, if there are these divergent groups with contradictory views about the vaccine, then there is a lot of information exchange that's happening between them that will sort of disrupt and destroy the good efforts of the government that are happening. So most of the misconceptions and the misinformation, as Professor Joshi pointed out, is coming from the informal media. And I think the formal media, or the media that has an impact, hasn't really played its part to its advantage in dispelling these myths and misconceptions. Such a clear message that Dr. Joshi gave. If all the media channels, all the print media, everyone joined hand together and gave just this one precise message without getting into the pros and cons of which vaccine has what kind of efficacy, the common man doesn't really need to know what kind of efficacy is there, or how good each vaccine is, or how many people were involved in a trial. And that kind of information, unfortunately, is being projected more often than this single very crisp message that you need to be vaccinated, go out to the nearest vaccination center and get yourself vaccinated while you continue all the precautions. So I think the media has a very large role to play. The government is already doing that, but the media has a larger voice because it also has a few influencers that are not giving the right messages. So maybe we should invest in more influencers who can give this kind of a message and give that one single point message that vaccine in from any industry or any form is going to protect you. It may not protect you from an infection, but it will definitely make your journey more safer if you are infected. So that message needs to go out. I think the second message that needs to go out is that if you have some other disease, then you have to be vaccinated, barring, of course, those exceptions where you cannot be, because it will significantly reduce your hospitalization risk and, the aggravation of the other comorbidities that you might have. So I think that's another clear message that needs to go out. Yes, vaccine hesitancy is there. The third, most important point, and when I speak to patient groups, for example, I'm actively running a stroke patient group. We have many patients from rare disease organizations. And these people, when they go to their doctors to ask whether they are eligible, they don't get a clear answer. Maybe it's because the doctors themselves are unclear as to whether there are any, criteria that debar these people from getting a vaccination, or they don't want to take the onus of telling the person that, you can go and get vaccinated, because if there is an adverse event, then they don't want to be blamed. So I think there needs to be some concerted effort to work with all the doctors at all levels to tell them that you have to give the right advice. And again, the patient groups are very strong. And I realize and I understand that even in one patient group, each patient is different. So one stroke patient may not be the same as another one. But if one person in that group has been advised by their neurologist that you don't qualify, he puts that message in the group, and then there are 50 more who say, no, we don't want to go and be vaccinated because this person has been advised not to be vaccinated. So I think the messaging has to be a lot more clearer, because these patient groups are very, very strong. And that is where the patient groups can play a very, very critical role by alleviating those fears and bringing back the confidence. And to your last point, where you said in your opening address that how can we make it more holistic and patient-centered ecosystem? As IAPO, we believe that everything that happens has to be co-planned, co-produced, and it is not possible in the vaccine ecosystem because everything happens so fast. But the last part of it is co-delivered. So I think the co-delivered gives us an opportunity to join hands together, especially for dispelling this misinformation and lots of doubts and myths and misconceptions that are there in patient groups. And we as a big platform, because IAPO is a global platform, we also run Indian Alliance of Patient Groups, which is a national platform, can give those right messages. And given the credibility that we have, I think people will listen to us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ratna Devi. I think very, very useful. And what you're bringing actually a forward-looking statement is that we all need to come together and give a precise messaging so that one single message goes to the citizens. Now, we have an expert on business ethics along with us, Dr. Andrew Plassey. And I really want to request Dr. Andrew Plassey to also share with us, you've heard all the stakeholders. You've heard them collaborating also during the pandemic. What are your expectations from all these stakeholders, particularly keeping business ethics in mind, and how do we move forward from here? Dr. Andrew.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you all today and to share a few actionable perspectives. I also really want to thank Dr. Ratna for her comments. Obviously, as we talk about all of these issues, patients are at the center of when we think about health systems. So I always truly appreciate her perspectives and the contributions of IAPO, which, as she said, are significant around the world. I think patients and societies globally have three expectations of their health system, including but by no means limited to the biopharmaceutical sector, right? Because as we know, health systems are complex organisms. Number one, the first expectation, societies expect innovation, that we are always working to improve the treatments and medicines of tomorrow. As the pandemic has shown, without innovation in health products and processes of all kinds, our economies inside societies will ultimately face consequences. Number two, they expect access, right? That we're always working to get the best treatments and the best medicines into the hands of those who need them. So the elimination of barriers, as well as the suppression or misallocation of precious resources to expand access to all stakeholders, should be a top priority. And there are certainly many barriers, they take many different forms all around the world today that are preventing this sort of access. And I want to dispel for any listeners who are thinking about this, that there are many ways to achieve the first and second expectation in tandem. You can achieve innovation and you can achieve access at the same time. And any construct that you can't is falsely placed forward. But the third expectation, the one that I'm going to focus on today, is the expectation of good governance, that we're always strengthening the trust that's required for patients and customers, including governments, right? Governments are a major customer of health goods and services, to have confidence in their health systems and in those that are operating within the health systems. So I want to start by saying that there have been tremendous improvements in governance and implementation of ethical business practices across healthcare systems, including the pharmaceutical sector, over the past decade, right? You'll never see this on the front page of a newspaper, right? Dr. Ratna was talking about the media and the dispositions of the media, but you'll never see this on the front page of a newspaper. But I shudder at the idea of thinking about what would have happened through today's health crisis, the one that we've been going through over the past year, had there not been significant advances in good ethics and governance over the past decade. I could only have imagined the implications that we would have seen through this health crisis and the corruption levels and unethical activity levels if there wasn't a structural foundation in place that's been widely implemented around the world, especially in health systems. But with that said, there is so much more work to do. In particular, I think patients and societies will expect two greater areas of focus: greater transparency and greater responsibility. So if your organization is not embracing these principles, then you're really unlikely to survive in a post-pandemic environment, right? Your trust capital will go first, and that will be swiftly followed by your investment capital and ultimately your ability to make sales if you're in a health-related industry. So while I believe society has generally adopted a zero-tolerance policy for ethical violations in healthcare, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any stakeholder or actor in health systems who is willing to tell you, even though we know they exist, willing to tell you that it's okay to violate good ethics and practices. I also hope, and what is less clear, that society will adopt a zero-tolerance policy for blame casting and siloed solutions to complex health problems. So it still just does not make any sense to me, after especially what the world has just gone through over the past year, why health stakeholders within their systems don't communicate with each other appropriately out of a lack of trust or, frankly, a lack of misaligned incentives. To quote Dr. Ratna, I see no sensibility as to how that benefits patients in this scenario. So I think what the pandemic has shown us more than anything, and I believe Rajaram had alluded to this, is that solutions require stakeholders ultimately to work together and to co-create solutions to shared problems. And in order to do that, it requires trust and it requires commitment.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Andrew Blasey. I think that was really nice. And maybe that brings to me, may I request each one of you, and we are almost coming very close to the end of the panel and time flies, but I really want one key message from each one of us for the audience who are listening to all of us. So maybe we can start with Dr. Shankar Mande. You want to start, sir?
Key lesson is that COVID appropriate behavior cannot be forgotten. Every time you step out of the house, you have to wear a mask, vaccinated or not. But you must get vaccinated. And after getting vaccinated too, please follow COVID appropriate behavior. For significant time to come, let us avoid social parties in enclosed areas which are less ventilated areas. And let us not try to be problem ourselves to others. Let us try to find solutions ourselves to others. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Joshi? Professor Shashank Joshi?
I think I would endorse with Dr. said, first. So we are vulnerable with comorbidity at the earliest. First, let us finish those where we can save our lives. And if we can do that at the earliest, I think that vaccine message, don't have hesitancy for vaccine. I think just go ahead and take a shot in the eligible criteria, because we need to save lives. Even today, in states like Maharashtra, we have only been able to vaccinate 1/4 or 1/3 of our senior citizen population. We need to ensure that all of our senior citizens need to get vaccinated as early as possible. And that's something which we need to do on a top priority. So I think my urgent request to each person listening is, first get all our senior citizens and comorbidities above 45, above 50 vaccinated at the earliest, because that's the population we want to protect from lives. First save lives and save them from critical disease, and then probably think of vaccinating the rest, because most of our younger population will recover quick and fast, even from the disease. But I think that is the first target. And second is keep, as Dr. Mande said, COVID appropriate behavior, mask, avoid crowds, avoid poorly ventilated spaces, maintain some distance. And if you are in a crowded situation, if required, even wear a double mask.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Mr. Jain, you want to go first?
From an industry side, I'd like to assure everyone that the industry is committed to supply consistently high quality medicines around the world. The collaboration and solidarity will be important. It is time for us to coordinate, collaborate instead of compete on COVID related areas. And we are committed to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mr. Rajaram?
Thank you. I think in the last 1 year, many things actions we took were forced upon us. We didn't have choices around those because we were locked down. I think we are now entering a phase where there is always going to be a temptation to go back, whether it is in behavior, whether it is in the way we did things. And I think this 1 year is going to be about the choices we make, because we can either take the easier route out of what we were comfortable with, or genuinely sort of be uncomfortable and then move ahead. I think that's going to be a big difference in the next few months.
Yeah, Vikrant?
Yeah, from me, it is embrace, adapt, and implement the change in life. And what Dr. Shashank and Dr. Mande has talked about, masks, social distancing, these are going to be new normal. And take care of livelihood. We need to also ensure that what we do in terms of pharma industry supply of essential medication, that continue. So keeping a balance of both is extremely crucial for each one of us.
Yeah. Dr. Ratna Devi, last parting message to the audience.
For me, the key message would be trust science. I mean, science has entered everybody's homes in a way that it has never been thought it would be possible. And science was something that only the very intelligent would venture into. But now science has become a discussion point in every home. So trust the science that you are seeing and trust the solutions that science brings. And then the second message is love thy neighbor. I mean, vaccination is not just about protecting yourself, but protecting your loved ones, your neighborhood, your country, your city, everyone. So if you really love your neighbors and love your countrymen, please go out there and get yourself vaccinated while you follow all the social distancing norms.
Yeah, I think we have a distinguished guest, and I think Rajita ji has joined us. So Rajita ji, welcome to the panel, and we have a special welcome to you. Sorry, I just saw you. I'm really, my apologies. But I think the person who brought all of us together from World Forum of Ethics in Business, I think Rajita ji is here. Maybe I'll request Rajita ji to say a few words and also request Dr. Andrew Blasi also for his concluding remark. Rajita ji, first, maybe to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anil. And firstly, my namaste to everybody. I want to thank all of you for spending your time and being with us this evening at this global summit of the World Forum for Ethics in Business. Right now, as you speak in this panel, there are 14 parallel panels happening, and our message is really amplified because we are webcast live and people from 100 countries are watching. So it is very valuable to have your, to have your advice on this very important topic right now. What Dr. Mande, you said about practical things to do, what you are saying, Dr. Ratna Devi, everybody, I just entered, so I heard a few of you. So I want to thank you on behalf of the World Forum for Ethics in Business and to thank OPPI for this partnership. About 2 million people are watching, and the viewership will increase of these discussions. So your message will continue to, I think, be important for the people of the world, and especially this panel specifically for us in India. I'm also joining from Mumbai. We just had before your panel started, the keynote opening panel with Dr. Tedros and Prime Minister of Slovenia, President of Suriname, a couple of health ministers, all kinds of representation, and right now that is what is happening. So thank you for your time, and we will continue to rely on your experience and expertise. Dr. Anil, you were asking about one takeaway. I would like to say that no one is safe till everyone is safe. And I think that is the common sort of theme that resonates. Don't only take care of yourself, but of those around you. So I just honest popped in because this was an important discussion, and wanted to hear a bit of it as much as possible. So on behalf of the WFEB Global Board, I want to thank all of you for making this time, and I look forward to being in touch. We want to do a lot more in terms of taking this ahead, and because our strength is our ability to reach out to the world, and we want to use your experience, and we want to use your voice to take this to every stakeholder around the world. So thank you. And this is it is really like a carnival of thoughts and ideas going on right now. On our WFEB landing page, there is a session in Spanish going on, one in French, one in Russian, and on different themes and topics. And it will continue until 8:30 p.m., 9 p.m. our time, parallelly. And then we have a concluding keynote because we oriented it around Europe time to fit all time zones. So that continues from 9 till 10 p.m. So if you have some time, pop in, and if you want to hear what leaders around the world, we have about 150 speakers like yourselves across 25 sessions. So I want to thank you once again for strengthening our effort and partnering with us, and I look forward to taking this ahead and being in touch with you. Namaste.
Rajita ji, thank you so much for your kind concluding words. But before I close the session and pass on to OPPI, I want to have concluding remarks from Dr. Blasi. Dr. Andrew Blasi, please.
Thank you. I promise I'll be fast as given the time. I would say, as we look to the future, in addition to the focus on collective action and co-created solutions to our ethical problems, which I think has been a major theme that you've seen discussed today, I would also say that as we look to the future, let us take the lessons that we've learned over the past decade, and let us take the experience and learnings from the pandemic that we've gone through and get ready for a wave of emerging ethical dilemmas that are going to give rise in the age of the digital world and technology, right? What we like to call techno-ethics, whether it's patient data and privacy, secondary uses of data, the application of artificial intelligence, the patient data supply chain. All of these things are absolutely going to be at the core of what we're talking about in 3, 5, 10 years' time. And if we want to get it right, that's going to be at the core of these discussions going forward. So let us use those learnings to get ready for the ethical challenges that will emerge in that world.
Thank you, Dr. Blasi. I think that is very well sort of alerted to all the stakeholders that we need to be ready for those ethical dilemmas as well, so that we are able to address them proactively rather than reacting it later. So very well said. Yeah. So now with just trying to conclude the panel discussion, first, I really want to thank each one of you for your participation. I really wanted to have one thought. I wanted to check with Nitika. Nitika, how are we running from a time perspective?
So we have 1 more minute. Anil, please go ahead.
Sure. Okay. So I'll just conclude on behalf of all of you. One, of course, is as we all said, all the efforts and collaborations we have seen together from all the stakeholders. And I really heard that the spirit of mankind came together. We all did not had strategy, but the pandemic brought all of us together. We leveraged the technology. We ensured that we collaborate for the better of the mankind. We also heard that all efforts were put in. There was, in fact, collaboration more than competition. And therefore, we have been able to successfully fight this pandemic. And we are still moving forward. Still, we have a long road to go. Let us all continue to create. And what Dr. Ratna Devi also mentioned, and I alluded in the morning, let us continue to reflect on how do we together co-create a patient-centered, holistic healthcare ecosystem. And I think all your suggestions will contribute in creating that. So thank you so much for your discussions, deliberations, and perspectives. And I really enjoyed that. Personally, I learned quite a lot. And thanks once again to the World Forum for Ethics in Business and also OPPI for providing me this opportunity. So I'll hand it over back to Nitika for further deliberations.
That was indeed truly an insightful discussion. Thanks to all our panelists for sharing your views generously and our moderator, Dr. Anil, for steering sessions so well. In this unprecedented situation, vaccines are the ray of hope towards the other side of the tunnel. And as our experts explained, people should approach vaccination with full confidence and trust. With a tremendous flow of information, people should fight the misconception by believing and sharing proven science backed by data to drive the distrust away. We should emphasize on building a strong, positive, emotional connect with patients, which eventually translates into trust. That's what Dr. Ratna said. As healthcare professionals, industry, and government are striving hard for equitable access to vaccines and medications, keeping patient at the core of their thought process. My sincere thanks to all of you who took this opportunity and made an effort by putting forward your experts' view, which is the need of the hour. I also would like to extend my gratitude to the whole WFAB and OPPI team for putting on such a wonderful virtual conference. Let us keep finding ways to collaborate and stay connected and strive harder for a better tomorrow. Last but not the least, we have a message from people around the world who are working round the clock for COVID-19 vaccine because they need them as much as we all do. They know that vaccines are one of the best ways to protect the people we love. Can we have the video, please?
A full lockdown has been announced.
Thought to be at the peak of the pandemic.
Los hospitales están sometidos a enormes presiones. Les hôpitaux doivent faire face à une énorme pression.
There have been 1 million new infections in the last week alone.
COVID-19 has been so tough, nonstop. The stress has really got to me at times.
I know I'm lucky to have a job, but working from home day and night while raising 2 kids has been crazy.
My mom is 91. She's normally full of energy, and I've seen her really struggle with isolation.
My husband and son are doctors in a hospital. Every day they are at risk. Sometimes I cry at night with a worry.
It's been very hard. My best friend lost her father.
You try and stay positive, but I worry that my kids are unhappy and miss their friends.
The world really needs COVID-19 vaccines.
We need them to be as safe as other vaccines.
They need to have been independently checked again and again.
We have to help make sure anyone who needs them can get them.
And that's what I've been doing.
What I've been doing because I want to help people get back to normal.
What I have been doing because frontline workers like my husband and son really need them.
What I have been doing because we've suffered enough loss.
What I've been doing to help protect those most at risk. We're just some of the people
who have worked around the clock
on COVID-19 vaccines.
And we need them to be safe for our families.
And for yours.
Nitika, you are on mute.
Thank you so much for all the panel members and Dr. Anil, and thanks to WFAB team once again. And good evening and good night. Thanks.
Thank you, Nitika. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I think now it's going live.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the World Forum for Ethics in Business, we welcome you to the biggest global summit of the year, Changing Paradigms in a Pandemic World, How to Regain Trust. For those of us who have just joined us, the World Forum for Ethics in Business is a public interest foundation registered in Belgium. The mandate of the forum includes all manner of pursuing and establishing the indispensable ethical foundations of business in a globalized world. Today, on the occasion of World Health Day, the World Forum for Ethics in Business has convened leading experts like those that you see on the screen today to put into perspective the current ethical and moral dimensions, as well as the practical implications and consequences of the pandemic on our health, our work, and our life as human beings. My name is Ajay Tejasvi, and I serve as the president of Shri Shri Tattva USA, an Ayurveda-based global health and wellness company. And we're delighted to partner with the World Forum for Ethics in Business at this very important juncture in the fight for global health. In a past life, I've also worked closely with more than 42 governments and multi-stakeholders from civil society, academia, business as well, assisting and supporting reforms for good governance through collaborative leadership. Today, I have the honor of serving as the moderator for this panel entitled The Power of Breath, a Scientific, Business, and Political Perspective. And as such, we've been able to bring together luminaries from these fields. During the course of the session, please feel free to tweet, like, ask your questions on YouTube or Facebook chat channels, as well as use the Zoom chat here to post your questions. Our team will help us select some questions that we can pose to our esteemed panelists. So with that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Joseph Leiden. Joe is a German politician who served as a member of the European Parliament from 1999 until 2019. He's a member of the Social Democratic Party, part of the Party of European Socialists. He's well known for his environmental and foreign affairs activities, as well as his support for a federal Europe. We are eager to learn more about your insights about harnessing the power of breath for success in building political alliances for social reform, Joe. A warm welcome to you. I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome Professor Fari Satsioglu. Fari, aside from being a really good friend, is also a professor in molecular and cellular biology at the Department of Biosciences at the University of Oslo, as well as a senior scientist at Oslo University Hospital in Norway. His research focuses on basic molecular and cell biology of cancer cells, in particular prostate cancer. Professor Satsioglu has also been interested in the biological and physical effects of lifestyle interventions, such as yoga, yogic breathing, and meditation, and has conducted extensive research in these areas. We look forward to hearing your insights into the scientific paradigms of stress management for health and wellness. From the world of business, we welcome Mr. Vishal Gupta. Vishal is a senior managing director at Accenture and heads Accenture's European Technology Sales and Solutions Organization. He also serves on the company's Global Leadership Council and Technology Executive Committee. In recent years, Vishal has developed a keen interest in mindfulness and mindful leadership, one that taps one's inner ability to be in the present moment and enhances team cohesion, collaboration, and employee engagement. We look forward to learning from your own experience in the corporate sector as well. Welcome, everyone. So, since we're talking about the power of breath in this session, do you know that we breathe approximately 20,000 breaths a day? And every day you breathe in about 2,000 gallons of air, almost enough to fill a normal sized swimming pool. Interesting, isn't it? So as we begin, shall we harness the power of the breath? Yeah. Many of us have heard the expression, take a breath, right? So shall we begin by taking a few deep breaths? Yeah. So I'd like to invite all of us to sit comfortably and easily. Relax your shoulders, relax your neck. Let's take a deep breath in. Hold the breath and breathe out as slowly as possible. Bring yourself to this moment. Take another deep breath in. If you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes. Hold the breath and breathe out slowly and gently. Let's take one more deep breath in. And let go. Let's all come to this present moment. And let's open our eyes if we have our eyes closed. Wonderful. So fully present that we are now, we can make the most of our time together. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore the impact of breath and meditation in the political realm, in the business arena, and in science. So I'd like to invite Joe to get us started from his experience with the power of breath in politics. And how was the breath helpful to you, Joe, as you built alliances, resolved conflicts, brought people together, and solved problems during your decades-long career? Joe?
Yeah, dear Ajay and all of you, happy to serve in this fascinating workshop, The Power of Breath. I met Sri Ravi Shankar the first time years ago in the European Parliament in Brussels. We have been in a meeting room with some 400 people. The air was sticky, and a meeting room where you have controversial political fights. And Sri came in and he made what we just made before. He sat down and he said, take a deep breath in, hold the breath, breathe out, and that 3 times. And I couldn't believe it. After this 3 times of 400 people breathing, there was a little wind in the room. It was a fresh breeze in a way. And the lights have been shining brighter. And somehow everybody was looking on everybody, and you could feel that there was a positive atmosphere in the room. And we are in the European Parliament from far right to far left, the whole political spectrum. And we had such a productive, positive debate later on with him about many topics. And I thought, my God, breathing is really a power that should be used in public life and political life. And I have a dream that the Secretary General of the United Nations is opening the General Assembly with a breathing session, so that all the 200 nations and their representatives start with breathing, or that on the G20 summit, they do it on summits. Because as I know, politicians are full, their heads are full of thoughts, of interests, of conflicts, and very often they are blocked. And I would say if they would start breathing, discovering that we are equal, everybody breathes in the same way because we have the same DNA. That would help a lot to come down, to disarm, and to get more constructive on what has to be discussed and resolved. And I saw that Art of Living is using breathing technique in prisons. And in the main New York prison, other prisons in Berlin, a lot of success. You think people are criminal, but on the other end, people are as well, let's say, people, and they are able to clear their minds. And I have seen the schools of Sri Ravi Shankar, different schools where breathing techniques is used. And these pupils are totally different of pupils you could see in our schools over here. So I think breathing is a technique that should be used in politics, in public life, as I mentioned, in schools, in administrations. And there's a little bit of dream that the United Nations General Assembly is starting with a breathing session like you did, Ajay. But one can have a dream. It starts with an idea, and if the idea gets powerful, it will be realized. Thanks.
That's beautiful, Joe. Thank you so much. And that's a real leadership lesson right there. Being open to new ideas needs you to be able to clear your mind of already existing ideas and the thoughts that exist within. And that's a very beautiful dream as well, Joe. I think one that all of us can together make a reality. Thank you for sharing. Vishal, please walk us through how you've seen breathing work and make a difference for entrepreneurs, for business professionals, perhaps at the 30,000 foot level as well.
Thanks, Ajay. So firstly, let me thank you, Ajay, and the rest of the team for bringing us together in this amazing discussion. So let me just take a step back and just share with you what's been happening in the world of business. The pandemic has actually thrown, in a way, the world of business in a big kind of topsy-turvy change, right? So, and in Accenture, we often say that we are going through a phase of compressed transformation. Many of our industries, if you look at automotive, if you look at retail, if you look at healthcare, they are going through a change which has never been seen before. It's a once in a generation type of a change. And what this is leading to is a huge amount of challenge for the employees of these companies. And if you think about it, employees are the number one asset of any of these companies. There are obviously thousands of employees who have either lost jobs or have moved to short-term contracts. Many of them have had to reskill, change their roles, and really work in a completely new way. This is further compounded by the work from home, which all of us have been kind of imposed. It has been imposed on us for the last year plus, where the boundaries between work and your personal life are blurring. You don't ever see your colleagues. You stay pretty much on video and in front of your laptop for 14-16 hours a day. Now, this leads into a very toxic situation where employees largely feel exhausted, tired, feelings of depression, sadness, anxiousness, so on and so forth. Most companies, including Accenture, have realized that this is the phase when mental wellness and well-being of our people is our number one priority. And to make it better for them, we launched a number of programs, where breath is a central part of it. How do we kind of bring people into the present moment by using breath, as a tool? People have had no tool to get out of it. So breath becomes a very important tool, using breathing exercises, using meditations, using yoga to really bring the mind to the present and create that feeling of not only well-being, but also connectedness to the larger community of other employees or your clients or your partners that we work with, and make you feel that we are all in this together and we will get through this together. So over the last year and a half, I think, the mental well-being and with breathing being a central tool, I think of getting through this difficult challenge and the pandemic, phase that we are going through has been absolutely critical for businesses. And I see a lot of leading companies, Google has been a great example of that. Of course, Accenture has been doing a lot of work in that. So a lot of leading companies are now, really adopting this as one of the key things that they encourage their employees to participate in on a regular basis. Back to you, Ajay, with that.
Thanks for that insight, Vishal. It's true, and this is a very real challenge which has been further compounded by the onset of the pandemic. Even before the pandemic, almost 87% of workers had reported being emotionally disconnected from their workplaces. And as you know, when you're not connected to a cause, you're not as productive as you can be. So really, it's very encouraging to hear about your own experience with use of the breath and awareness and meditation techniques that can help provide that much needed solace, perhaps, to individuals so that they can be at their best in the workplace as well. Thank you, Vishal. And we'll go a little bit more in this as we proceed. I'd like to go to Fari now and request his insights as a researcher, as a scientist, on how has he seen this really impact individuals, and where does he, what are his insights on this? Fari, over to you.
Thank you, Ajay. First of all, for the kind invitation, and greetings, everybody. I think from a scientific perspective, we can consider two aspects of our breath that becomes very important for us. First, from a physiological perspective, of course, breath is life. We cannot be without it. It's the first act and the last act of our lives. Yet we do not pay enough attention to it. There are tens of trillions of cells in our body, and they all need the oxygen that we get in each breath. As you reminded us, Ajay, we breathe in and out 20,000 times a day and enjoying about 10,000 liters of air. On the other hand, what we usually do not recognize is that breathing and the lungs are one of the 5 major ways of eliminating impurities from our body. The others being the digestive tract, the liver, the kidneys, and the skin. This is why, for example, if someone has ingested some alcohol, we will immediately smell it in their breath, as it's a toxin the body needs to get rid of. We now know that more than 3,000 substances can be detected in our outgoing breath. Yet, if you're not trained well, an average person may be using only 30–40% of his or her lung capacity. Therefore, this is something critical to consider. It's a big issue for our physiology in terms of getting enough oxygen and also at the same time efficiently remove the waste products. If this process is not efficient, of course, it will eventually give rise to disease states. And conversely, if we can improve our breathing, then we can improve our whole physiology. And there's significant research supporting this possibility, that through breathing exercises, we can positively impact health and wellness, as Vishal was pointing to. The second aspect of the breath that we should consider is that it functions as a link between our body and our psyche, our emotions, our inner realm. We all experience this, of course, that our breathing is different in different psychological states. For example, when we are stressed, such as in an exam, we breathe shallow and fast. When we are relaxed, such as when we are strolling on the seaside one early summer morning, we breathe in and out deep and slowly. So our breathing is directly linked to our mental state. I'd like to briefly share my screen and show you a couple of slides from a study on this, because I think it's important. And this is a study that was done in Belgium several years ago. What the researchers done was that they did 2 experiments. In the first experiment, they asked the subjects to bring in different emotions in their being. And then they measured the different breathing patterns that they may have. So joy, anger, fear, and sadness. They found that for each of these emotions, there was a different pattern of breath. Then they did another experiment. They made the subjects to breathe with the different patterns that they found in this experiment. And they asked how they felt. And lo and behold, the breathing pattern that was associated with joy now produced joy, and anger produced anger, and so forth. So what this suggests is that by changing our breathing pattern, we can influence our mental state. In fact, there are a lot of studies on breathing exercises. I just looked this morning. There's more than 10,000 studies on breathing exercises in general, on traditional pranayama breathing exercises, about 350 of them. And the studies show that there is significant positive effects on different parameters of health and wellness. For example, anxiety and depression, Ajay, as you pointed out, it's a very big issue, mental health problems. These studies on a particular type of breathing exercise called the Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, a set of breathing exercises, they decrease the levels of anxiety, depression, stress in healthy people in the population as well as in patients. These had significant effects on, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder in veterans. There are some very interesting studies in the US on that. There are some physiological effects and also psychological effects as well. So I think the body of knowledge with this understanding suggests that breath is that link that, if used properly, can impact our health and wellness in a major way. Back to you, Ajay.
Thank you for that very important insight, Fari. And as you, Joe, and Vishal mentioned as well, the breath is a great equalizer, isn't it? I mean, we all breathe, and very often we breathe the same air that when we're in a room. And even the air that is around this planet is completely recycled as well. So it's nice to be able to harness the power of the breath. Since this segment, this session itself is about the power of the breath, shall we actually harness the power of the breath using a breathing technique? It's called the bellows breath. I also like to refer to it as your alternative to caffeine or the healthier alternative to caffeine. It makes full use of your lung capacity as a bellows. And it's a very simple technique. You just breathe in and out. And the way you would do it is you would sit with your spine erect. You keep your fists loosely clenched by your shoulders. And when I say breathe in, you raise your hands up, open your hands like an open flower. And then when you bring it down, you close it. So what we'll do with this segment, actually, we'll do a few rounds of this breath. And then we'll do a short awareness practice just to see or experience the power of the breath in our own lives. Yeah? We all thought, as we were discussing what would be the best way for us to demonstrate and share. Of course, sharing our experiences is one way, but we also thought it might be useful to have an actual demonstration where we brought everybody who's watching with us today, who's participating, to the space of what we're talking about. And what better way to do that than through actually experiencing the power of breath? Yeah? So let's do this. Let's sit with our spine erect. Sit comfortably and easily. Relax your shoulders. If you're wearing glasses or something tight, you can take it off for just a moment. Let's bring our fists loosely clenched by our shoulders. Let's keep a gentle smile on our face. And we can do this with our eyes open or closed as you feel comfortable. Yeah? Let's take a deep breath in and breathe out. One more deep breath in and let go. Together, breathe in and take your hands up. Breathe out, down. And we'll do this a little bit quicker, yeah? Breathe in, out, in, out, in, out, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Relax. Relax. Let's place our palms on our thighs or our laps, facing the sky. Take a normal deep breath in and breathe out. Observe any sensations in your body. You may be feeling an increase in the circulation of blood. Let's do it another time. Fists loosely clenched by our shoulders. Let's take a transition breath in and breathe out. Together, breathe in, out, up, down, up, down. And relax. Keep your palms on your thighs or laps, facing the sky. Let's close our eyes. Take a deep breath in and relax. Let go. Observe any sensations in your body. We'll do this one last time. Bring your fists loosely clenched by your shoulders. Take a transition breath in and breathe out. Together, breathe in, out, up, down, up, down. Continue. Relax. Keep your palms on your thighs, facing the sky. And just observe the sensations in your own body. Observe the breath. You may close your eyes if you wish. Just observe the sensations in your own body. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. One more deep breath in. And as you breathe out, relax your shoulders, relax your back, relax your neck. Become aware of all the noises in the environment around you. Whatever those sounds are, sounds of birds chirping in the trees, the sound of traffic, of children playing or people speaking. Become aware of all the noises all around you. Breathe in and let go. As you breathe out, you are at ease with all the noises in the surroundings. Relax. Become aware of your body. This body is a precious instrument a precious gift to you from nature, from God. Honor your body deeply. Let's breathe in. And as you breathe out, relax your whole body. Become aware of your breath. Incoming breath energizes the body, and outgoing breath relaxes the body. Become aware of this phenomenon as you continue taking a few long, deep breaths in and deep exhalations. Breathe in again and breathe out. Become aware of your thoughts, if there are any. Positive or negative thoughts. Let them be. You are at ease with your thoughts this very moment. Just breathe in again and let go. Become aware of your emotions and feelings, if there are any. Let them be. You are at ease with your emotions this very moment. Another deep breath in and let go. You are peace. You are joy. You are love. Breathe in again and let go. One more deep breath in and breathe out. Become aware of your emotions and thoughts. Become aware of your body and surroundings. Breathe in again and let go. And slowly and gently, taking your own time, you may slowly and gently open your eyes. Just take a moment to observe the state of your own mind. And become aware that you're more present now than you were a few moments ago. Good. So I'd like to ask Fari, what is it about the breath that has this remarkable transformational ability? What is it that brings us back to the present moment this way? Fari?
Thanks, Ajay, for that wonderful exercise. Maybe it shows in my voice. I'm so relaxed now. So for me personally, I've been doing yogic breathing and meditative practice for most of my life, and it has made a big impact in my life. And it has become an integral part of my daily routine. I feel that it is due to these practices directly that I feel healthier, more relaxed, more energetic, and it has improved my communication skills. I can even say that it made me a better scientist. As you mentioned, Ajay, I'm a molecular and cell biologist, and it means that I like to understand how things work at the very fundamental level of biology. So an experiment we did several years ago, looking at the potential effects of breathing exercises at the molecular level, made me even a more steadfast believer in the power of breath. If it's okay, I would like to share a couple of slides to demonstrate that.
Of course, please.
So in the cell of trillions of cells, in each cell in our body, there is DNA, and this is the blueprint of our physiology. There's the knowledge in DNA in packets of information called genes, and the genes are, the information in the genes are transferred through a molecule called RNA to proteins, which are the building blocks of our whole system. This process is called gene expression. So based on the physiological and psychological effects that I briefly mentioned that were found in previous studies, we suggested that maybe we can detect effects at this molecular level of these breathing exercises. So I just want to remind you that if you take cells from the same person, they have the same DNA, but they look very different and they function very differently. Nerve cells, liver cells, heart muscle cells, lymphocytes. The reason for this is that they have different patterns of gene expression. So what we did was we took this SKY program that I mentioned, where participants practice some gentle stretching and breathing program, a series of breathing exercises, and then they rest. So this takes about 2 hours. It's not done every day. For this study, we did it in this way. The same subjects, at the same time of the day, instead of doing this program, they went to a nature walk and came back, listened to relaxing music as control. So we repeated this, both of them, twice. And before they did these regimens, we took blood from the subjects and then isolated the immune cells in the blood. And then we are able to determine the whole of gene expression program at one go in these cells. So we compared the SKY program with the control regimen of going for a nature walk, listening to classical music or relaxing music. So what we found was that, I will not describe this color-coded image. This is basically, you have in each column different subjects, and on each row different genes. Compared to the SKY breathing, the control regimen gave rise to much less change. About SKY program was 4-fold more effective in generating changes at the molecular level. And we know exactly what these are, and their interactions, how they may work in the cell, but functional studies need to be performed. But what these findings show is that the breathing exercises, they go all the way to the molecular level. They affect our immune cells at the level of their DNA to RNA to protein. Of course, further studies need to be conducted, and we are doing that in different settings, including in cancer patients. So I think this gives us a perspective that these exercises, they seem so simple, they may make us feel relaxed, just as we experience now, but it's not something only in the mind, but they go to the very basis of our physiology. Back to you, Ajay.
Thanks, Fari. And Fari, can you give us a sense of how long some of these participants had to do these programs to experience these molecular changes, or were they almost instantaneous?
The group that we tested, they had various levels of experience from before, from only a couple of months to a few years, and all of them had similar changes. I believe that we haven't done this experiment yet, but it's very fast. So what was very significant, it was the first time it was shown, was that we can immediately observe these effects within 2 hours.
Thank you, Fari. Thank you for that. It's fascinating, really, that the breath can have such a profound impact at our very basic genetic level as well. Joe, over to you now. Could you share some personal anecdotes with us in terms of how you have personally benefited, perhaps, from some of this breathing and awareness in the realm of politics?
Many thanks to Fari. I have now an idea how it looks inside when I do the sky breathing actually every day. We have the Ujjayi breathing through the throat, the bellows as we have done to mobilize, and then the sky is another form of breathing. And somehow I'm a fan of sky breathing since some years, and it is amazing. I have a very low blood pressure, so coming up in the morning before was always a little bit tiring, and I didn't feel well. So doing the sky, I'm clear, I'm fresh, I'm motivated for the day. It is amazing how that changes. And even if you do it 15 minutes, it's not much more. What I observe with my body, and Fari just showed us the DNA, the RNA, and the protein, I lost weight. And I stabilized my weight. Whatever I eat and drink, I can eat as much as I want. With the sky breathing, the body has balanced itself to a certain weight where I feel well. So anybody who listens to us and shows looks to this session, do it. It is so beneficial for many parts of well-being. Mentally as well as, of course, by body health.
And Joe, have you found that it impacted your decision making? Did you find that it made a difference to you as you interacted with colleagues? Were you able to think of different ideas, or were you more open? Any of those? Any little insights you can share?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you are not, let's say, tired and unmotivated. The breathing really opens up your mind, and you are ready for new adventures, for new activities. And good, hopefully for always good activities, but it mobilizes you to do something and not to hang around and say, oh, it's raining outside. I have no really interest to do something. The simple breathing, which costs nothing, is so easy. can change your look on the day, on the moment even. And I must say that I benefited a lot from it. It kept me healthy. I will not tell you how old I am, but it kept me healthy and it kept me active. And that's can continue another decades. Then I'm satisfied with God.
Thank you for sharing, Jill. Gurudev often says that you are only as young as much as enthusiasm you have, and you're clearly very young. You have a lot of enthusiasm and zest for life. So wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Vishal, how about you? How have you seen this specifically impact you in the space of your own? I mean, you're very successful business professional. How has this impacted you personally?
Sure, Ajay. So, so I'll probably say more from the perspective of Accenture and the business. Of course, I have personally been a practitioner for a while, and I think for me, the personal benefits are very similar to what you was describing. I just feel, let's say, so much more energetic, so much more in the present moment. But more importantly, I also feel it improves my intuition. So because a lot of business decision making, you never have all the data, so you do have to make a few bets, and you have to kind of make decisions through ambiguity. And there, of course, I cannot prove it, and maybe Fari can do an experiment on this at some point, but it does improve, and I feel it does improve my ability to make the right decisions in that ambiguity and through stressful sort of situations, right? So that's been a big personal benefit for me. But the second aspect of it has been, so last year as the pandemic hit, one of the initiatives I took was to invite a number of my colleagues to join this movement, if I may, and really benefit from these tools. And we did this middle of last year when the pandemic was in full flow, particularly in Europe. And my goal at the time was to invite about 120 people. And to my surprise, we had about 400 people from all over Europe, all of my colleagues, from different parts of Europe coming in. We had 3 workshops, which was really about breathing and really talking about how you can use these tools to de-stress. And it was quite overwhelming, the kind of feedback that I received from the participants, many of them doing it for the first time. And they really were talking about how it is making them feel peaceful, calm, less anxious, more in the present moment. So a lot of very, very positive feedback, and which was, I must say, personally overwhelming to have kind of got that type of positive feedback. And a lot of people amongst that also continued the practice. Now, some, of course, dropped out along the way. So later part of last year, we did one more workshop, which again was attended by a lot of people, and again, very positive feedback. And very recently, this is about a month ago, because the lockdown in Europe is still on, as you know, and it just doesn't seem to be getting over. So just about a month ago, we did another workshop. We called it Resilience this time. And the idea was that how do you kind of build mental, physical, social, and purpose-based resilience in people. And there again, this was held or this was done by our colleagues at TLEX, one of the partner organizations of this forum. And they held it, and it was again primarily around the power of breath. We used a lot of breathing techniques, but then we also went a bit beyond that, looking at how can you be doing some acts of kindness, how can you obviously use a lot of yoga, how can you kind of build a bit of a purpose around that. So so you kind of we looked at a bit more broader sense, from a resilience standpoint. And yet I thought breath was the central aspect of that. So we did all of this, the bellows breath, several different breathing techniques. And again, the feedback, and this was my leadership team, about 120 people, again, the feedback was very, very positive, and people think this is a great intervention that Accenture is doing. And you sense that they feel more belonged to the company, that you get a much better sense of teamwork between people, because you are really going beyond day-to-day business and you're really taking care of each other. And that creates a very positive vibe in the team, really, right? So that's the other thing I found, how good this is from a team bonding standpoint. So if some of you may have experienced doing this alone and doing it with a team, right? And there is a difference, right? And doing it with a team brings you closer together. And that's what I saw in all of these workshops, that people become much better from a bonding and from a team spirit standpoint as well. And that means that as you look at the big challenges ahead of us, you find much more cohesion and collaboration in the team. So with that, I will hand it over back to you, Ajay.
Thanks, Vishal. That's really fascinating. And I think it's very interesting, because I think 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, people might have been more resistant to try something like this, meditation and breathing. But I think now there's a greater degree of openness and a willingness to try something different. So that we can see different results, right? I think Albert Einstein once famously said, if you want to see different results, you do different things, not the same thing again and again. So we have a few questions from our audience, and I just wanted to pose these to you. I'm also mindful we have about 7 minutes left to go in our session, and I do want to come back to each of you to think, to ask you to think of the way forward. But this question, you've already answered some of the other questions that I've seen in the chat. This is one question for Fari. Are there any groups studying molecular effects of breathing using concepts of individuality and exposomics? I'm sorry if I said the second word wrong, but Fari?
To my knowledge, no. The second word, could it be proteomics?
I think this is a question from Dr. Jeff Feynman. And Dr. Feynman, is it proteomics or is it exposomics?
But to my knowledge, in any case, it's the studies so far have been done on the field of transcriptomics, the study that I showed you, because RNA is also referred to as a transcript, mRNA transcript. So it's at the level of transcriptomics. We need to do at the level of proteomics, looking at the protein changes in proteins, also lipidomics, changes in the lipids, and other aspects like that.
Thank you for that, Fari. And for those of us who have joined, please know that you can reach out to us, and we will see how best we can get you connected with our experts as well, if you have any further questions for them. At this point, I want to see if we can have this section around the crystal gaze, looking into the crystal ball. What's your prediction about the trends for the next 5 years? How do you see the power of breath playing a role in improving the state of our society? And what would your advice be for aspiring leaders in your fields? So, Joe, I'd like you to get us started on this. And do you believe that we can change the world by giving the power of breath to our political leaders?
Yeah, Ajay, you mentioned before that a few years ago, there was a lot of skepticism about these old techniques. It was called esoteric, so something strange like a sect. And little by little, you discover that all over the world, meditation, yoga, breathing get familiar to more and more people. And to my astonishment, even here where I'm living in the schools, they have yoga. It had never existed before. When I was in school, it was simply unknown what yoga is. And so I think there is an awareness growing that we are all the same, whether we are rich or poor, tall or small, white or colored. We function basically as human beings in the same way. And if that could be coming to the awareness that we are all the same, we really could build a better world, because we basically don't differ so much. It is more politics or power or fanatism that separates us. And breathing is the first thing, more or less, what you do when you come to this life. And therefore, getting breathing more and more familiar would, in my opinion, help to solve a lot of constraints, a lot of stress and problems, and probably, hopefully, to form a world community, a one world and a better world.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that. Fari, what are your thoughts?
So I certainly think that the breath offers incredible avenues. And from a scientific perspective, there are two areas that I think are very exciting. And one is our ability to understand the mechanisms of how our breath is linked to different aspects of our mind-body system, as we've been discussing, so that we can harness this information to evaluate health and wellness. And the second is to explore the possibility that we can use breathing exercises to improve health and wellness with societal impact. So for the first one, we were talking about transcriptomics, lipidomics, etc. There is a field now, very young, which is called breathomics. So I mentioned that there are more than 3,000 substances that we can measure in our breath. We do not know what these are indicators of, but for some of them we do. We started to learn. For example, there's a disease which was very difficult to find out and treat before. It's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, where in the small intestine, bacteria grows, and then they give gases that we can measure in our breath. And then we can catch this early on, and then so that it doesn't cause potentially serious disease such as diarrhea, weight loss, malnutrition, and so forth. So I think this is one big area, the breathomics, that we will be able to harness this to, just like you give blood, and then in the blood, certain parameters are looked at, and then something about your health and wellness is known. It will be like that, but we will take a biopsy of your breath. For the second area, I think there are really big opportunities to apply this knowledge. For example, we did a study, not a formal study, but we have evaluated health professionals, about 1,700 of them, who participated in a program over 3 days, 1.5 hours each day, learning these breathing exercises in Turkey and in Portugal as part of a Europe-wide program. As you know, our real heroes are the health professionals working with COVID, intense physical and mental pressure. And then we gave them a survey after the program. In the surveys, 100% said that they have benefited from this program. 100% would recommend it to their peers. 94% felt that it decreased their stress levels. 90% felt that it improved their interactions with people. And maybe most remarkably, 79% felt that it improved their job performance at the hospital and clinic. I think this is really noteworthy that in such a short time, such practical, easy to learn exercises can have such a big impact. And I think we just need to bring it in different fields, in the business, in education, in health system. At the same time, conduct research at different levels, which I am most keen about. But I think that it is an extremely fertile and very much needed area.
Thank you very much for that very fascinating prediction, Fari. I'm sure that I'd be so fascinated just by somebody just taking a whiff of my breath and telling me all of this information. Really fascinating. And the program that I believe that you're talking about is offered through the Art of Living Foundation, as well as variants through the Transformational Leadership for Excellence Institute, the TLEX Institute that Vishal also referred to. Vishal, I know we're a little over time. I wanted to get back to you. how do you see us emerging stronger from this whole trial of fire that the whole world has been going through over the last 14, 15 months?
Right. So Ajay, I'll build a bit on what Fari was saying. So in the world of business, I mean, I see, that while I think a lot of companies, including Accenture, there is a lot of discussion around how do you kind of leverage the power of breath, for a number of benefits. But I still believe it's at a very early stage. So there is a lot more to be done. I mean, my personal dream is that companies like mine, where we spend hundreds of millions in training, in learning, and all of those activities, this should be a core element of that, right? I mean, today it's happening, not at that level of scale, right? I mean, in my company, we have 500,000 people, for example. Now, how many of those people have really benefited from this? I would still say it's at a pretty early stage, and so is the case with most other companies, right? So firstly, I see a huge opportunity to bring this into the business world for the benefit of the business, which is really about better employee engagement, creating much better team spirit, better decision making. Also, if you look at some of the change that I expect going forward, clearly in the post-pandemic world, one thing which will definitely happen is the velocity of change will only go up, right? I'm in the technology area. Now there we are saying artificial intelligence, for example, is one area where the next decade is going to belong to artificial intelligence. The other area we talk about often is sustainability, right? And how does technology impact sustainability? If you have to work in any of these, I think it's super important to be mindful and have sort of people or leaders who are mindful, because what you really need is a sense of centeredness, a sense of connectedness, a sense of giving when you work in these areas. And that, again, all of these things need something very fundamental for you to be able to really deliver the right results. And breath, again, is a very, very important element of making it happen. So to just summarize, Ajay, I think there is a lot to be done. The early signs are very promising in the world of business, and there is a lot to be done with the help of all of you, I think, here on the call, to kind of really bring this center stage in business, so that employees largely and our customers, can really benefit from leveraging the power of breath and everything that it brings along with it. With that, back to you, Ajay.
Thank you so much, Vishal. And Joe and Fari, I think from a high level understanding of our impact, we've also seen how the breath truly can impact us on such a personal, individual level. And we've heard from leaders in the fields of politics, business, and science. Please join me in expressing a big thanks to our panelists, also to our participants and viewers, and all those who made this session and conference possible, all the volunteers, the technical teams. A big thank you. We've all heard of the expression, take a breath. We all know now how much powerful that simple act of breathing can be. So shall we take 3 deep breaths as we conclude today's session? Yeah. Let's relax our shoulders one more time. And let's relax our neck. Let's take a deep breath in. And let go. Another deep breath in. And breathe out. One more deep breath in. And let go. We're all certain that you found this to be an interesting and engaging conversation. On behalf of the panelists, on behalf of WFEB, we wish you all good health and happiness for the years to come. Stay in touch, follow us on social media, and we will see you all in the main session in just a little bit. Thank you very much. Take care.